Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 831. Guess. Who am I? He grinned. Exterminating an entire family is the same. Starting with concentrated and detailed attacks from various aspects. Attacking the mental fortitude of this family in waves. Let them slowly break down on their own to the very end. Even though they had the strength to take a shot, they'll lose it because of extreme shock and distress, because their minds have already thoroughly broke down. This is the highest realm of an assassin. The person who said this was definitely not some senior figure of the three holy lands anymore. He was worse than those so-called demons. In fact, this fellow was a vicious demon. He used to be notorious in the past for a period of time. This slaughterer of thousand souls Wang Wei ran hundreds of years ago. This was a name that could terrorize children to stop them from crying. The faces on the other three men looking at him changed. One of them said, "Brother Wang, even if it's exterminating a family, just killing them quickly saves so much trouble. Why go through the trouble of torturing them like this? Wasting time and effort aside, it damages virtue." Wang Wei Ran chuckled. In life, it's all about seeking pleasure. You guys have never experienced it, so you wouldn't understand that sort of excitement and pleasure from torturing others at your will. That sort of feeling is truly amazing. All the other three people couldn't help but shiver. We are all normal people. How could we compare to a demon like you who is capable of doing all sorts of evil? Wang Wei Ran continued. Since I joined the elusive land of immortals, I'm no longer as good at doing such things. But this time, the lords are making a too big of a fuss in dealing with these few big families. They've over-exaggerated. But I'm not sure if you guys have noticed. The lords were very specific in their choice on who to send on this task. And this choice has made it clear that the lords obviously do not want to let these families die a quick and easy death. They want them to be thoroughly tortured and trampled upon them. Although the lords did not explicitly say it. But, haha, the hidden meaning is clear. Oh. Brother Wang, do explain more. The other three men revealed an interested expression. The people the Lord sent out this time, all the leaders are dissident and notorious people in the past. Take myself, for example. Who has ever regarded me as a righteous, chivalrous person? Even if I joined the three holy lands, so what? I am still that slaughterer of thousand souls from the past. Wang Wei Ran laughed coldly. But why did the Lord send people like me here? And even appoint us as the leader of the team? Amongst the four of us, I am not one who would humble myself. But in terms of strength, cultivation and even wisdom, I am not superior than anyone. I am well aware of this. But if there is something I am better at, it is merely the fact that I am better at torturing others. Why didn't the Lord send all those righteous fellows instead? Has it really never crossed your minds? Wang Wei Ran chuckled coldly. And, before we came, the Lord only gave very simple instructions. He did not give any specific arrangements that we must follow. Obviously, he is saying that we can do things however we want. We make the decisions. No matter what we want to do, there is no problem. No wonder. The Lord only said, wait for an opportunity to get rid of them. But he did not talk about general battle strategies and arrangements. We thought that it was because it was unnecessary because the opponents are worldly families who were weak. So that is how it is. The other three people were enlightened. The brother of our Lord, Venerable Xiao Yao, died tragically in the snowy mountains. And almost 600 top experts from the three sections. Not a single one of them was weaker than the four of us. But they all perished and were buried under the snow mountain. And 9 saints. Only Demon Eye Saint who survived. Although he is completely discouraged and disappointed. How could anger from a vengeance like this be simply vented with just killing? Wang Wei Ran spoke with great sincerity. The Lord wants to vent this anger. But he is too embarrassed to say it outright. After all, he cannot afford to lose the 3 Holy Lands' reputation of being righteous and virtuous. And he has too many things to be worried about. We, at the bottom, will naturally get our rewards for settling things properly and helping those at the top. But in that case, if someone really comes to settle scores afterwards, then wouldn't the few of us become the scapegoats? You said so earlier, we lost so many experts before. The opponent is definitely extremely strong. If there are any more changes, the Lord will definitely not take action. But we are chess pieces that can be easily abandoned. The Lord can sleep with no worries by simply pushing the few of us out. But the few of us would be completely done for. The 3 people still frowned when they worried over this aspect. Wisdom that had accumulated over 100 years. Who would want to risk all that? Settle scores? Who would settle scores? To outrageously fall out with the 3 Holy Lands over a few worldly families. There is only Jun Moxie in 10,000s of years. Today, that scoundrel Jun Moxie is dead. Who else will still come and settle scores? Wang Wei Ran sneered. For 10,000s of years, how many people dare to really oppose the 3 Holy Lands? Your concerns are completely illogical. After this reminder, all 3 of them were relieved. That's right. Saint Emperor Zhan sacrificed his reputation and made the decision to kill Jun Moxie on the spot, eradicating a huge threat for the 3 Holy Lands. This sort of act is really admirable. You have to know. The reputation of a saint emperor is even more important than his life. Indeed. Since ancient times, there has never been a powerful person who did not treasure his reputation. Even a common person also knows to protect his image. Saint Emperor Zhan tarnished his own reputation to assassinate Jun Moxie. It is truly courageous. The 4 people began to share their praise. As if that Saint Emperor Zhan's sacrificial act of assassinating a junior was a actually heroic legend of sorts. Today, it should be old Sun's turn to be on duty, right? Wang Wei Ran looked over to the man in white beside him. Get moving after you're done eating the roasted goose. Take an excursion to the Dongfang family to work your bones and digest the food. The white-clothed man beside him, old Sun, had a big black mole on his face. He chuckled after hearing this. No problem. A mere Dongfang family, it's not my first time going there anyways. Has there ever been an instance where it was dangerous? But, after this matter, this old man intends to have his fill with the females of the Dongfang family. When the time comes, I hope the 3 of you can help me keep this secret. I am only doing my duty and finding out news. I have no knowledge of anything else and will not pay attention to them. Wang Wei Ran cackled, wriggling his brows. That's right. We won't see anything. Old Sun, just go and have your fill. How could you not eat your fill for such intense exercise? Ha ha ha. The other 2 said. I thank the generosity of the 3 of you then. Old Sun was extremely elated. To be very honest, I really have been holding it in so badly these couple of years. To the point that even my skills are having problems. If I had known earlier that it'd be like this, I wouldn't have agreed to join no matter what. Haha. All 4 of them broke out in loud laughter. After hearing your conversation, only this last sentence makes some sense. As expected, you guys shouldn't have agreed to join the 3 Holy Lands. Because if you had refused, then you won't have to sacrifice your lives here like this. A gentle voice piped up. Who? Who is it? The four of them leapt to their feet. That voice clearly came from somewhere near them, but not a single one of them had noticed anything. The immense strength of this person could be imagined. The four of them instantly turned around, only to see a youth donned in white robes, standing just a meter away from them, his hands behind his back, a warm and graceful smile on his face. His eyes were fixed on that roasted goose. He clicked his tongue and said, "Such great aroma. It's a pity that the four of you did not become chefs. Why did you become fighters? How can that sort of bloody and massacre compare to the safety of being a chef?" Wang Wei Ran felt his heart sinking. The other party had managed to come this near to them so silently. This was a tabooed distance that could allow one to kill someone just by stretching out their arms. He released his spirit sense to check the opponent out. But to his shock, his spirit sense could not detect anything. The other party was clearly standing right here, but under the spirit sense's search, the place was just empty. Shut. Wang Wei Ran may not be powerful, but he had much experience in the pugilistic world and was able to roughly understanding the other party's strength. He cursed in his mind, but quickly put on a smile, cupping his hands. In a respectful and polite manner, he said, "May I ask if this young master has any requests coming to this place?" If it is help that you need, the four of us are willing to lend our strengths. If it is within our means, we absolutely will not refuse." "Oh. Really?" Jun Moxie tilted his head, looking at him in amusement. "Of course. Just give us your orders if young master has any." Wang Wei Ran was obviously getting more and more respectful in his attitude. To people like him who originally dwelled in their evil ways, as long as they could keep their lives, would be willing to do anything. As long as they managed to escape with their lives, they could seek revenge another time. Life was the most important thing. "May I ask for the name of this young master?" But at this moment, Old Sun suddenly asked, blinking away in shock. This sentence left Wang Wei Ran swearing away in his mind. "Stupid. You haven't figured out who this person is until now? We may still stand a chance of survival if we act confused. But you just had to go ahead and asked. That's fecking stupid. Are you looking to die? Even if you want to die, don't drag me along with you. Didn't you see me lowering myself and not asking for his name? Other than Jun Moxie, is there a second person like this in this whole world? Are you a pig? Wait. If he is Jun Moxie, then why didn't he die? Saint Emperor Zhan had clearly said that he killed him on the spot. And there were many saint-leveled experts who witnessed it with their own eyes too. Wang Wei Ran began to have his doubts. But it did not last for long. Can't you guess? Jun Moxie blinked his eyes in disappointment and asked. Don't tell me that until now. You guys still cannot recognize who I am? His expression was really upset. As if it was an extremely unacceptable thing for the other party to not be able to recognize him. Beads of perspiration appeared on the tip of Old Sun's nose. I'd like to ask young master to enlighten me. The same time he had said this, his heart was drumming away. He was praying fervently in his heart. Please. Please, please, please. Don't let it be that little jinx. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 832. Young Master Jun's Court Trial. If I said I am that 9-14th young master, would you believe it? Jun Moxie chuckled. That's impossible. Old Sun shouted. Oh. You also know that that is impossible. Then, if I said I was the empress of the elusive world of immortals, Mo Wu Dao, would you guys believe it? Jun Moxie blinked his eyes. You. Then. If I said that I'm actually your father, do you recognize me? Jun Moxie grinned, revealing 2 rows of pearly white teeth. You. Jun Moxie. Don't you go overboard. Old Sun hollered, fuming with anger. His eyes had even turned red, and he couldn't control his temper anymore. Shut up. Feck you. You're just trying to find a lover for your mother. You had already recognized that I was Jun Moxie from the start, and you still want to act dumb in front of me? What the feck? Were you deprived of your father's love as a child? You want this young master to teach you a lesson? This young master can sacrifice a bit and be your father for half a day. Jun Moxie sweared away, glaring angrily. Jun Moxie was trying to delay some time with all that bantering earlier so that Bailey Luo Yun and the rest could completely surround them. Right now, everyone had already gotten to their positions. With over 60 spirit Xian experts all around them, dealing with these 4 people was simply a piece of cake. With no worries of them escaping, why would Jun Moxie still be interested in wasting his saliva on them? Especially with a bastard like this who practices vicious arts that gathers in from raping women to boost the yang in the body. Jun Moxie had the least interest in speaking with him. Young Master Jun felt that he had given this scum a lot of face by scolding him. Picking up a son like this was an insult to himself. Why did I casually pick up this cheap son just now? You. Old Sun was so angry he was about to vomit blood. He did not expect that his polite question would get him scolded and insulted by the other party. Not only was he berated profusely, he even gained a father for himself. Steam was coming out from his ears. But he turned around and realized that his other 3 companions were a little off in their expressions. He looked up and felt a chill coming from his spine, extinguishing all the anger in him instantly. All 4 of them had the same expression and actions, stiff bodies, mouth opened wide, eyes widened in shock, completely petrified. All around them were burly built men. All of their expressionless was a murderous glint in their eyes as they marched uniformly forward. With each step they advanced, the surface of the ground shook. The 4 of them exchanged looks and realized to their horror that all these men were not very old, in their 30s or 40s. But they had incredible strength. There were less than 10 people who were weaker than themselves. Almost every single one of them was an expert of the spirit Xian level. All of these people had a murderous aura around them. Their eyes were cold, like the wolves on the prowl. And with their massive build, it looked like a mountain collapsed and was looming over them. Such a heavy atmosphere made it difficult for them to even breathe. Where the hell did Jun Moxie find so many experts from? And they are all so young. All these 4 people clearly had no time to wonder about this. Their hearts and minds were completely filled with despair. Under this sort of vast difference in strength, the 4 of them did not have the slightest chance of victory. The only method they could employ right now was self-destruction. And drag some sacrifices along. Perhaps only this method can cause some damage to the opponent. But, the most important thing is, we still don't want to die yet. Boo-hoo. The 4 of them were about to burst out in tears. Arrest them all. Jun Moxie flicked his wrist before gently flying up and exiting the circle. Ho! With a loud holler, a large man suddenly rose and came hammering down like an iron tower. There was only attack, no retreat. Like an imposing thunderbolt. And no hesitation of perishing together. It was like a warehouse containing explosives being triggered. All 60 over men rushed forward, howling loudly, like a pack of hungry wolves who had suddenly discovered a delicious prey. All 4 of them cried for their mothers in their heart. My dear God, there are so many of you, but you still have to give your all to beat the 4 of us. There should be a limit to this sort of bullying. Not even giving a chance to negotiate. The 4 of them were utterly despaired when they thought of this. Negotiating with Jun Moxie? That was asking to be scolded. Trying to sell favors and butter up to someone who doesn't give a dang. It's unreasonable. It was destined that this matter today would not end well. The 4 people who had fallen into a hopeless situation got themselves together and hollered at the same time, drawing their swords and throwing their fists and kicks, accepting the battle. Ha! With a loud sound of explosion, a battle unfolded. Just that from the moment this battle began, those few evil experts from the elusive world of immortals had suffered greatly. These men are not only not inferior to us, and they also excel in joint attacks. There is such flawless coordination in their attacks between each other. The moment both sides clashed, the 4 people had fallen into a state of mess. Although they desperately defended themselves, they couldn't help but suffer quite a number of punch and kicks. They were bruised up and bloody within seconds. Jun Moxie. Fight us one-on-one if you are that capable. What sort of capability is that? Outnumbering us. Ah! Old Sun had shouted this line from shock. But he suddenly cried out tragically as a giant, rock-hard fist landed right in his mouth, breaking all his teeth. Even his cheek exploded. His broken teeth went flying out through the hole his cheek. Wang Wei Ran was the craftiest. Making use of the chaos, he took on a few attacks and suddenly gave the 2 companions beside him a heavy shove. Then, he leapt up at lightning speed onto a nearby tree, ready to escape. The 2 who had been fighting beside him suffered many blows were already in a pathetic state. Now that they were taken by surprise and pushed by him, they couldn't help but stumble. With a clang, their swords hit the ground. Then over 10 fists came raining down on them. The 2 of them only had enough time to shout, Wang Wei Ran. You despicable! In anger before they were knocked unconscious. Wang Wei Ran, who had managed to land on the tree branch, was laughing scornfully. To be able to escape is of utmost importance. Who cares if it is despicable or not? You only have one life. Just as he was about to speed up and flee, his vision was blocked by something. He was so shocked he couldn't help but scream. All the hairs on his body were standing up. A handsome face appeared right before his eyes. Their nose tips were practically touching. They could even smell each other's breaths. Just as he was about to turn around and run, that person gagged and hollered furiously. You have fecking bad breath. I'm going to die from the smell. Then he raised his hand and slapped him over 10 times in a blink of an eye. Wang Wei Ran's head was swinging left and right crazily, and coupled with his long hair, he looked like a girl who had consumed some ecstasy and flipped her hair left and right crazily, spitting the teeth he dropped as he swung his head. After what felt like eternity, he finally fell onto the ground headfirst. His face swollen like a pig head covered with handprints, and with a loud paw, he created a huge hole into the ground. He felt like the whole world was spinning. He shook his head a couple of times before gathering his senses. When he opened his eyes again, a sharp sword was already pressed against his neck, and he suffered a heavy kick to his dantian. Not far away, a youth in pristine white clothing was gagging away impolitely. Why does this old bastard's bad breath stink so much more than body odor? This young master has really suffered today. Seriously unlucky. Who else could it be than great assassin Bailey Luo Yun? He had been secretly supervising the battle, worried that there may be fish that escaped from the net. He caught sight of this shameless bastard trying to escape, so how could he let him have his way? Wang Wei Ran was running away quickly, but Bailey Luo Yun was even faster in his chasing. So they ended up bumping face to face. In the past, young Master Jun often liked to play pranks like this, appearing out of the blue on Dugu Xiao Yi and Han Yen Meng, often scarring these two girls to the point they turned pale and screamed loudly. Bailey Luo Yun and the rest will be laughing uncontrollably at the sight. Bailey Luo Yun had just wanted to mimic Jun Moxie's usual way of wriggling his brows and asking, "How are you?" first. But he didn't expect that just as he opened his mouth, the person opposite him would scream as if he had seen a ghost. This scream was not a big issue, but that intense stench from Wang Wei Ran's mouth had caused young Master Bailey, who has always been fond of cleanliness, to really suffer. Young Master Bailey only felt an indescribable stench hitting him in his face, but it was too late for him to cover his nose and mouth even if he wanted to. He felt like that stench still lingers in his mouth, and wouldn't go away even after 3 days. "I probably won't have any appetite these few days. If I'm unlucky, I probably won't be able to taste anything for 3 months." Bailey Luo Yun couldn't figure it out. Why is it that Jun Moxie has never encountered anything like this when he do this? The one time I decide to be mischievous, I almost die from the stench. Are humans really that uncomparable? Is it a crime to imitate? Jun Moxie looked at Bailey Luo Yun's depressed look and snicked mentally. How can it be this easy to learn this young master's teasing skill? You must know that those who are frightened by this young master in this way, be it Guan Qing Han, Dugu Xiao Yi or Han Yen Meng, these three are great beauties. Even if they scream in fear, it'd be a wave of fragrance coming out of their little mouths, enough to make one drunk, who'd be like you, finding an old man with big yellow teeth to tease. This young master is already surprised that you haven't died from the stink. Take your time and vomit. You'll get used to it as you puke. The 4 of them were carried over like sandbags and placed neatly before Jun Moxie. Young Master Jun cleared his throat, putting his hands behind his back. He solemnly hollered, "Hold the court trial." Might. All the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer members were also amusing enough to go with the flow, dragging out their voices as they passed the door. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 833. Arrival. After a series of cruel extortion of confessions, Jun Moxie obtained the information that he currently needed. Of course, this process was naturally extremely unenjoyable for Wang Wei Ran and the rest. Just from that petrified, "I'd rather die than stay alive" look in their eyes, you could tell how terrifying an experience it was. Neither young Master Jun nor the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer members had the slightest guilt when using such wicked torment on these scoundrels who were originally evil and immoral. They were even quite pleased. They had disciplined 4 bastards after all, making these 4 scoundrels incapable of doing harm anymore. Jun Moxie frowned slightly, feeling extremely troubled by the news he had obtained from the 4 people. In their confession, they revealed that Mo Wu Dao had gotten someone to arrange for no less than 200 missions for the Dongfang family to assassinate. And every single one of them was not easy to deal with. Needless to say, there were experts from the 3 holy lands planted beside some of the targets. Amongst those over 200 targets, at least 20 to 30 of them had experts hidden around them. This number was a relatively scary number, although it was not significant. The only problem that had led to this was merely because the three Holy Lands could not afford to deploy that many experts. In fact, the three Holy Lands perhaps did have the capability to arrange for more experts to protect the targets of the missions, but that would make things too obvious. Only through an arrangement like this, where most of the missions were completed successfully, and only 10% of the mission failed, would nobody get suspicious. Furthermore, as long as it continued like that slowly, not only would it drain all the strength of the Dongfang family, the normal society would also not find any fault or flaw with it. The logic was simply, as an assassin, if you failed to complete a mission and got killed, then it only went to show that you were not strong enough. It was a completely normal thing. And who would know that behind all these was the three Holy Lands in the shadows? So no matter what, no matter which side died first, there would be no impact to the three Holy Lands' reputation. As for those missions that could be accomplished, naturally they'd have to make the payment. But the money wouldn't be coming from the three Holy Lands, because there would definitely be someone who'd foot the bill for them, and they'd be fighting to make payment. Those who didn't get the opportunity to pay would even feel regretful. Besides, so what if the Dongfang family managed to collect all that money? What's the use in so much money when the whole family was dead? At the end of everything, someone from the three Holy Lands would appear, pretending to insist on pursuing this matter in the name of upholding justice in the world and investigate the tragedy of the Dongfang family and then exterminate them. Then wouldn't that go to show that they had substance and boost their reputation? By then, the Dongfang family would have gathered a relatively large amount of fortune, but it would all land inside the three Holy Lands' pocket. The methods in dealing with Sikong family and Duanmu family were almost the same. These two families who were even weaker didn't even require as much work. Needless to say, they were already so oppressed to the point that they couldn't even raise their heads. Jun Moxie figured out all of these four. He couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. This empress of the elusive world of immortals, Mo Wu Dao, is truly a prodigy at overt plots. If it all goes according to his plans, not only will he get his revenge, sell his favor, and even vent his anger, he can even get a perfect ending, gaining both fame and fortune. How can the term prodigy be enough to fucking praise him? Jun Moxie had always thought that Li Yuran was already despicable enough. And his methods were also relatively good. Probably no one else in the world could surpass him. Even if Jun Moxie tried to compete in terms of intelligence, he may not be Li Yuran's match. But from the looks of the current situation, there was always a sky above a sky, and a man above a man. This empress of the elusive world of immortals really shouldn't be a brother with Mo Xiao Yao. This scoundrel was literally Li Yuran's twin, and he had to be the elder brother. However, the thing that made Jun Moxie feel truly troubled was the fact that although these four men knew of Mo Wu Dao's plot, but they did not know which targets had experts hidden around them. But this was no surprise. After all, this whole matter involved too many people, and they didn't pay attention to it, so it was perfectly logical for them to not be aware of it. Furthermore, Mo Wu Dao wouldn't let them know too much. Jun Moxie began to feel anxious, praying non-stop in his heart that the Dongfang family had not embarked on their mission yet. If that's the case, if there is any loss, then it is an irreversible regret, especially the three uncles. They are the closest people to Mother and I. Jun Moxie stood up with a cold look on his face. Set out at full speed to the Dongfang family. Yes, sir. Bailey Luo Yun replied before asking, then, what about these four men? All four men had a beginning look in their eyes. They were all truly afraid of death. You still need to ask? Are you still an assassin? Jun Moxie chided unsatisfactorily. With a flash of white, He had already vanished. His voice came from far away. Make it fast. Don't make any delays. Bailey Luo Yun quickly gave a response and ordered. Kill all of them. Hurry up and catch up with young master. Don't make any delays. He said it so indifferently, as if he were giving instructions for a small matter like he was killing chicken or pigs, as if he had not just decided the fate of 4 people. The 4 of them paled and were about to curse and swear, but 10 long swords had already pierced right through their bodies. When Jun Moxie had arrived, the Dongfang family was extremely calm and peaceful. After he had announced his name, he saw Third Master, Dongfang Wendao, coming out to bring him in personally. He had a chiding expression on his face. Moxie, why did you really come? You brat. Why are you so foolish? The target of the 3 holy lands has always only been you. Wouldn't your appearance give them the chance to seek revenge? If anything happens to you, what are we uncles supposed to do? We are still secondary. What about your grandmother and your mother? How would you want them to accept it? Although his words were full of chiding, but Jun Moxie felt warm and snugly inside from hearing it, forcefully suppressing that sudden wave of kinship in his heart. Jun Moxie smiled and said, Rest assured, uncle. Since I dared to come out, naturally it is because I am absolutely certain. Otherwise, is your nephew that sort of reckless person who would act when he is unprepared? Absolutely certain? Dongfang Wendao scoffed. When I was your age, I was absolutely certain of jumping to the skies to pluck the moon. Just a little bit more and I'd reach it. But could I really reach it? You young rascal who is still wet behind the ears. Talking big like this. How many difficult times have you gone through? How many treacherous people have you met? Do you know the difference between being certain and arrogant? Jun Moxie conceded defeat. This third uncle of his was too straightforward. But feeling certain that he could pluck the moon at Moxie's age, this certainty was indeed a little too big. But Jun Moxie was clear that Dongfang Wendao was simply full of concern. Although Dongfang Wendao was aware that Jun Moxie currently had outstanding skills that had way surpassed this uncle, but the crisis this time could not be compared to the one last time. In Blizzard's Silver City, although the 3 holy lands had a powerful force, but it was still within the margins of what they could fight against. But right now, the 3 holy lands had deployed their stronger experts. How many of people in the regular society could be their match? In the eyes of the Dongfang family, no matter how fast Jun Moxie growed, and how outstanding his strength was, how could he be a match for the 3 holy lands who were giving their all? Right now, Bailey Luo Yun and the rest who were a bit slower reached the doors of the manor. Dongfang Wendao sighed with resignation. Since you're here, then just play for 2 days. Then the 3 of us shall personally escort you back to Tianfa. Sigh. Young people really don't know what are consequences. He suddenly widened his eyes at the last sentence. Eyeing the 60 men behind Jun Moxie in shock, he took a sharp breath of air. Swallowing his saliva, he asked, where did you get this many experts from? Why do they all look so familiar? It's you guys? How did you all advance this rapidly? Naturally, Dongfang Wendao could tell that these 60 burly men were not inferior to him in terms of strength. And these people were not Xian beasts, but rather people he knew. This was nothing surprising. Dongfang Wendao had met these members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer units before. They had received the guidance of the 3 brothers, but that time, they all only had the strength of Earth Xian and Sky Xian, which had already left the 3 brothers astonished. But in merely a few months, they had leapt to this sort of realm, and were all almost comparable to himself. How could this be? This is too miraculous. Dongfang Wendao felt as though he was still reading. This is a lot. I don't think it's a lot. Jun Moxie looked at him in shock. I already split the troop into 9 groups to rush to rescue the others. There's only 60 men here. Why do you still find it a lot? Furthermore, the rate this bunch of guys are advancing at is not that impressive. It's too slow. Even I find it a little unbearable. How could you say that it is fast? Uncle, who uses sarcasm like this? Young Master Jun asked in surprise. What? Split into 9 groups? In other words, there are at least 8 other troops with this sort of strength? This sort of advancement is still too slow. Dongfang Wendao was completely at a loss for words. What is this nephew talking about? Leveling up by 7 to 8 levels within just a few months is too slow? And say that I'm being sarcastic? Who is this brat? Is he giving people a chance to survive? Dongfang Wendao rubbed his temples, his body swaying a little, shaking his head as if he were trying to snap out of this dreams. Follow me, he said. Then he turned around and brought Jun Moxie in. Bailey Luo Yun and the rest also followed behind, entering the place. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 834. The seeds sown back then and the fruits reaped today. They had just entered the courtyard, and the meeting hall of the Dongfang family was right in front of them. Dongfang Wendao hit his head, turned around, and said, Right. You brat better be careful with your first uncle. No matter how strong you have become, your first uncle will still deal with you. Either way, you're doomed for sure this time. After saying this, the corner of his lips twitched. What is wrong with first uncle? Jun Moxie was really taken by surprise. He had been too busy recently. He had already forgotten that little mischief he had caused back then. You still have the cheek to ask? Are you really unaware of the good deed you did? Dongfang Wendao started cackling weirdly, his mouth stretching so wide it was going to reach the back of his ears. 1 2 3 4. 2 2 3 4. Change a posture. Repeat. Wahahaha. Pft. Jun Moxie burst out laughing from this weird act by his third uncle, instantly recalling his works from back then. I have to say, you rascal really is too mischievous, ha ha ha, making your first uncle, ha ha ha, someone as serious as him, making him change postures every night, working so hard, he even, in the air, ha ha ha. Dongfang Wendao had been forcefully trying to hold his laughter back, but he still couldn't help but feel like laughing whenever he thought of this matter. The more he laughed, the funnier he found it. He simply squatted on the ground, holding his stomach, tears falling down from laughing too hard. Jun Moxie also joined in the laughter. But he was suddenly stupefied. Now that I come to think of it, I seem to have buried a bomb here too. Looks like first uncle has already come to the realization and is going to deal with me. What should I do? Bailey Luo Yun and the rest clearly had no idea what this uncle-nephew duo was laughing about. They all watched on, trying to find out about the gossip. Just at this moment, a loud holler rang out. Wendao! What are you blabbering about? His tone was extremely heavy. Clearly, he was infuriated. A burly figure appeared before everyone in a flash. The person had an extraordinary appearance, 3 strands of long beard splayed across his chest, an angular face, eyes like those of a crimson phoenix, eyebrows that resembled reclining silkworms, a strong nose, and an air of dignity around him. It was young Master Jun's first uncle, Dongfang Wenqing, or Dongfang Old Master. But the current Dongfang Old Master's relatively fair face was completely red, his eyes spewing fire, and he was breathing heavily. The more you looked, the more he looked like Guan Yu. Jun Moxie. You little beast. You came at the right time. I thought you rascal would hide away in Tianfa forever. If you did not come, I'd personally be going over to find you in Tianfa forest. Now that you little bastard sent yourself to my doorstep, you've saved me the long journey. If I do not teach you insolent thing a lesson properly, I'd be ashamed of my principles and morals. Dongfang Old Master was turning purple, shouting in a mighty and thunderous voice. Following this sound, Dongfang Wenqing flew forward, his large palms reaching out for Jun Moxie, grabbing him over. Bailey Luo Yun and Leng Ao exchanged looks. Is this the legendary meeting between nephew and uncle? Why is this process so peculiar? That uncle earlier started laughing so hard until his stomach hurt. Then this uncle who appeared later had addressed young Master Jun in 4 different ways and simply started attacking? What sort of complicated relationship does this family have? Jun Moxie screamed in terror, instantly running for his life. How would he dare to be caught by Dongfang Wenqing when the situation was like this? This was his uncle. He could not even think of fighting back. Even blocking his attacks was unacceptable. The only thing he could do was to run like his life depended on it. If he was really caught, then how can he still run after a round of torture? Grandma! Save me! Uncle wants to kill me! Save me! Young Master Jun burrowed his way under Dongfang Wenqing's elbow and ran, shouting tragically the whole way, as if he had already been badly abused. You lawless little rascals still dare to run. Stop right there. Dongfang Old Master was fuming with anger, giving chase. Within seconds, nephew and uncle went running from the courtyard into the hall, then from the empty hall and back out. One fleeing while the other in hot pursuit. Jun Moxie shouted loudly for help the whole way, causing such great disturbance in the Dongfang family, causing countless people to stick their heads out to see what was going on. Seeing that the situation was not in his favor, young Master Jun immediately ran towards the inner courtyard to seek relief troops. Dongfang First Master gritted his teeth and continued giving chase with no intentions of relenting. His attitude screamed, if you go up to heaven, I'll chase you to the celestial court. If you go into the sea, I'll chase you to the crystal palace. If you burrow underground, I'll chase you to the courts of hell. If you head west, I'll chase you till Daxiong Hall too. All in all, no matter where Jun Moxie ran to, he would vent this anger no matter what. Dongfang First Master had never been this embarrassed. But he was really anxious about not having any descendants for so many years. After finally catching a glimmer of hope, how could he let it go? There were 3 greatest acts of being unfilial. The greatest one was not having descendants. So when he had obtained that set of secret techniques for bearing children, Dongfang First Master had been fastidiously heeding it. Every single act was done strictly according to Jun Moxie's secret techniques, and he was afraid of taking any chances. After all that hard work, the results were evident. After a few months, his wife and concubines were all pregnant, and Dongfang First Master was extremely satisfied and elated. If he had met this good nephew Jun Moxie back then, he would probably be capable of kowtowing to him. Who cared about hierarchy? This was a favor of saving the pride and dignity of a man. But he had unintentionally found out the truth in a conversation with Dongfang Wenqing. Dongfang Wenqing had come to realization, the medicine Jun Moxie had given him back then had already treated all his ailments. There was completely no need for some chance. postures, and all that nonsense. He could still get his wife pregnant. In other words, at the same time he was saved by that good nephew of his, he was completely toyed by him too. And this embarrassing thing was completely known by his second brother. And the most unacceptable thing is, that second brother of his was a loud mouth. Thus, even third brother knew, then after. For a period of time, Dongfang First Master could hear giggling everywhere he went. This had led to him developing a new ailment, allergic to the sound of laughter. As long as he heard laughter, he'd fly into a rage no matter what the cause of the laughter was. But who, in his entire life, did not have matters that gave them the urge to laugh? Here was a simple example: someone accidentally farted in public. It could even trigger a round of laughter. Not to mention that there were really too many matters like this. Dongfang First Master was on the verge of going crazy. The moment he heard laughter, he'd assume that it was directed at himself. Right now, the main culprit had suddenly appeared, and Dongfang Wenqing was enraged. No matter what, he wouldn't let him off. No matter who tried to convince him, he would not let go. He absolutely would not let go. Cough. What's the matter? What happened? Are you guys trying to rebel? A dignified cough rang across in the midst of the pursuit. Old Madame Dongfang came walking out from the inner courtyard to see the chaos in the courtyard. Dongfang Wenjian, hiding behind her, covered his mouth, trembling from trying to hold back his laughter. The great savior had finally arrived. Jun Moxie looked as if he had been saved. He hid behind the old madam, his face full of indignance. Grandma. Uncle has gone mad. I just returned and he wants to beat me till I'm dead. What is going on? Save me. Old Madame Dongfang couldn't help but roll her eyes secretly. Who would beat you to death for no good reason? Isn't it the mess you created back then? Did you really think I'm a fool? But the old lady was extremely good at acting, and her face looked full of surprise. She berated Dongfang Wenqing. Stop it. What sort of disturbance have the two of you uncle and nephew created? Look at the two of you. What a mess you made of the entire courtyard. Even if it is the young one who is mischievous, don't tell me you, as the elder, got hooked on as well. What is the matter? Tell me about the cause and effects. Let me hear of it. Without a doubt, old madam would naturally stand on the side of her nephew in this fight between nephew and uncle. But this seemingly fair sentence had Dongfang Wenqing almost fainting over. Let you hear of the cause and effect? Could this matter even be talked about? He instantly turned purple, lifting a trembling finger and pointing at Jun Moxie. Good. 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 Little rascal. You, just wait. Jun Moxie cried. Uncle. Things will not be resolved if you do not talk about it. Grandma is right. Even if I really did something wrong, you should say it out. Let everyone be the judge of it. And if I really did something wrong, then it makes sense for me to be beaten up by you for you to vent your anger. But you didn't say anything and just went straight after me. I feel so wronged. No matter what. I had just arrived at the doorstep of home after traveling for so long, and hadn't even had a cup of water. Straight away, I was getting beaten up. Who would be able to accept this? If this nephew did anything wrongly, you should say it. Right now, young Master Jun's expression was full of injustice and grievances. A song that wrenched the heart. Where did one find a knowing ear? Dongfang Wenqing glared so hard that his eyes looked like they were about to pop from its sockets. He was extremely angered, but he just couldn't bring himself to say a single word. He was bound to suffer this unspoken grievance today. Ha ha ha. At the entrance of the courtyard, Dongfang Wendao, who had laughed so hard till he was sitting on the ground, suddenly burst out in laughter again. He was sprawling on the ground, tears falling out of his eyes, his fists hammering away at the ground, his entire body convulsing, trying to catch his breath. Dongfang Wenqing finally had somewhere to vent his anger. He shouted, Dongfang Wendao, what are you laughing yourself silly about? Do you still have any decorum? He strided over as he said. Dongfang Wendao instantly noticed that things were not good. Although his laughter had yet to cease, he had already leapt to his feet. He was just about to flee, but he was already out of strength from laughing too hard. He didn't have the time to break into a sprint before his older brother grabbed hold of him. Then, he got carried out like a sandbag. A series of consecutive explosions could be heard from outside, as if a firecracker had been lit. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 835. Roll with the punches. Is that good enough? Your third uncle took the blame for you this time. Satisfied now? Old Madam rolled her eyes at Jun Moxie, but couldn't help but chuckle. You little scoundrel. Getting craftier now. We really need to be careful when dealing with you now. To even set your uncle up. You're really gutsy now. Ha! Jun Moxie laughed dryly. Isn't it because uncle, actually that incident was just a moment of carelessness, merely coincidence. Purely coincidence. That chant is also coincidence? Old Madam glared at him. Jun Moxie was instantly flabbergasted. Grandma. Let's talk about serious business. I heard that the family was in danger, so I came rushing over at the fastest speed, without any breaks or rest. This journey was really exhausting, hee. Jun Moxie was a master of finding new topics and changing the topic. Danger. Indeed there was. But all in all, you shouldn't have returned. Old Madam sighed heavily as she began to walk. A small crisis like this. We can still get through it with our strength. Oh. Looks like Grandma already has a countermeasure for the trouble the three holy lands created this time. Jun Moxie asked carefully. He could more or less tell that in the entire family, the one with the strongest sense of pride and protection was this old lady before him. The three holy lands are undoubtedly powerful. But the Dongfang family is no herbivore. A family of assassins. If we don't kill and people don't die, then are we still worthy of being called a family of the pugilistic world? Old Madam Dongfang scoffed. No need to be so cautious. Roll with the punches. That is all. You can accompany me for a few days. But hurry up and go back. The matters here do not require you yet. The Dongfang family can deal with it. Of course. With Grandma's invincible might, conquering the world is just around the corner. Ha! Who doesn't know that Grandma traveled around the country with just a sword alone? Your reputation spread far and wide. Envied by women, superior than men. Making all the men in the world feel ashamed with your sword. There was a discussion, 10,000s of people have their hands tied, and not a single one of them was a man. A beauty of her generation laughing upon the world. This might is unheard of. Jun Moxie's flattery came spewing out fluently. Enough. Enough. Your grandpa Jun Xie perhaps likes all that flattery of yours, but your grandma doesn't. Stop it. Old Madam was blushing, a gentle look in her eyes as she said satisfactorily. Even the steps she took resounded as she walked. The aura around her had a tinge of murderous intent. Indeed. I'll be very honest. Actually, I admire this part of Grandma the most. Who in this world doesn't like to be flattered? Everyone would be giddy with happiness the moment people praise them a little. Isn't that the problem of all those in high powerful positions? But only Grandma is different. The lotus grows in mud, yet never contaminates, and she floats on waving water, never dancing. Calm, wise, far-sighted, and intelligent. Never accepting flattery from others. You can't even be compared to those people. I'm not trying to bootlick. I'm just speaking the truth, they are all facts. Jun Moxie continued to speak the truth. Well said. Humans really should not hear too much praise. We need to be logical and have a basic sense of judgment. This is what those who are in high places must do. And because only by doing so, they can make the correct strategies. You child like to speak the truth, not hypocriticals. And I really like this. Speaking honestly, doing honest work. You won't suffer any disadvantage anywhere you go. Old Madam crinkled her eyes and gave a satisfied smile. A radiance was vaguely revealed from her face, with an air of solitude is better than ill company and loneliness sitting at the top. Dongfang Wenjian behind couldn't bear to continue watching this scene. He looked up in the sky, as he swallowed his saliva. This is still considered truth. Oh my God. But he had only mumbled in his heart. Had he really said it out, he would be in a lot of pain. Yes. Take the 3 holy lands this time. They definitely will be getting 8 lifetimes worth of bloody bad luck from offending Grandma. When I was on my way here, I even met 4 experts from elusive world of immortals. They had even discussed some so-called vicious plot. They're trying to display their mediocre skills before an expert to be laughed at. Jun Moxie quickly pulled the topic back. They had actually planned to do this. Actually, I also know that it is completely useless. Under Grandma's deep foresights and strategic planning, that so-called plot is just a complete joke. If you guys clashed, it'll definitely be as easy as pouring boiling soup on snow, blowing ashes from the palms, picking up a rocket artillery to hit a mosquito. Jun Moxie was covered in cold sweat after explaining the 3 Holy Lands' vicious plot with great difficulty. At the last sentence, his tongue slipped. But Old Madam's expression turned serious. She had not paid attention to Jun Moxie's last few lines. Jun Moxie was trying his best to humor her. Old Madam could tell. Her grandson knew of the stress and toil she had experienced during this period of time and purposely tried to make her happy out of filial piety. Old Madam was delighted and pretended that she was muddle-headed. Besides, being flattered by your grandson was really an enjoyable thing. But when they started talking about serious business, she couldn't continue to keep up the act anymore. In fact, when Jun Moxie had talked about the arrangements of the 3 Holy Lands, Grandma and grandson came to a mutual understanding to put an end to this exchanging of flattery. Old Madam slowly walked and plodded. When she reached the main hall, she suddenly asked, Wenjian, what is the conclusion of the negotiation on the other side? Dongfang Wenjian snapped back to his senses and replied instantly. According to your orders, they're still delaying for time. I already instructed them to not only charge according to capabilities, but also charge for traveling fees, consumptions, possible accidents. I even especially reminded them to talk about it bit by bit, and bargain for it cent by cent, so currently both sides are very exhausted from the negotiation. Jun Moxie broke out in loud laughter. A negotiation like this would never end. Because a new problem could be added in any time. And talking about the journey bit by bit, bargaining cent by cent for an assassin to kill someone? It would be no wonder if the person was driven mad. It was simply a more indirect way of rejecting, hoping that the other party would find it difficult and back off. As expected of this grandma of mine. How did she think of such a crafty and oddly effective solution? Something like this is completely unheard of. If you are not patient, then we can just call off the discussion. It's not us who refuse to take the job. It is you, the employers, who gave up of your own accord. Either way, the decision is in the hands of the Dongfang family. If we do not deploy people, it is because the negotiation of terms failed. Don't tell me the three holy lands are shameless enough to come and attack us. Using this strategy to deal with those hypocrites was truly excellent. All right, just try to delay the rest. Just take on 10 of them first. We still need to take action. We cannot keep dragging on forever. Old Madam waved her hand and said, just remember the principle of 3 no kills. You guys can make the decision for the rest. But Moxie just said, the 3 holy lands already planted their men around the targets. If we hastily take on a job, wouldn't we just fall into their trap? Dongfang Wenjian was stunned. We still have quite a number of men the family can deploy. Although there are not as many high-tier ones, but we do have quite a lot of middle-tier ones. We have no choice but refuse because our strength is not enough. But now that we have gathered enough strength, why are we not earning the money put into our hands? And not only can we boost the reputation of the Dongfang family, we can also weaken the enemy. Even if we take on 100 of this sort of ready-made God-sent opportunities that gives both fame and fortune, we won't find that it's too much. Enough strength? How did we gather enough strength? Dongfang Wenjian was still confused. Are you dumb? Old Madam turned around and looked at her second son in disappointment. Moxie just brought 60 spirit Xian experts. Could he bring them from so far away just to watch a show? Can't they be deployed? Dongfang Wenjian was even more giddy. He tactfully reminded. Mother, perhaps you're mistaken, those people are not assassins from Dongfang family. It's not a good idea. Jun Moxie facepalmed. Speechless. You idiot. When will that stupid brain of yours learn to make a turn? Old Madam was instantly infuriated. As long as none of us mention it, who would know where they came from? Are the 3 holy lands capable of knowing? Even if they are suspicious, can't we deny it? Why are you as stupid as your father? Dongfang Wenjian was embarrassed. But he instantly caught on. Mother is right. Jun Moxie couldn't hold back his laughter. He started cackling with a loud ha. Old Madam let out a long sigh. Holding Jun Moxie's hand, she said sadly, Moxie, we've let you see our embarrassing side today. Look at your few uncles. All of them are so stupid. This whole head of white hair on your grandma's head is completely caused by the 3 brothers. They're already so old. But why are they still unable to understand? When will they be able to understand? Dongfang Wenjian's face darkened. Though he didn't dare to speak out, he was mumbling internally. What caused by us? Clearly it was because you were worrying about younger sister. One word from you and all the blame is on me now. Jun Moxie chuckled and said, Don't worry, Grandma. I'll concoct some pills for you these couple of days. I guarantee that you will regain your youth. That head full of white hair. It's no problem. It'll turn back to black. Luscious locks. You'll be a standard, black-haired baby face in no time. I'm not going to even ask if you are just trying to humor me. I've already aged, why would I still want black hair? I'll just end up having people calling me an old monster. Grandma only casually mentioned it. It's not that bad like this. Old Madam sighed with sorrow. Jun Moxie chuckled, not commenting anything. He just decided to change the topic. Oh right. Grandma. What is 3 no kills? These are the house rules of the Dongfang family. No killing commoners. No killing of honest and upright officials. No killing of good people. We must investigate the backgrounds of the targets of the mission, including evidence of their crime. If we discover something amiss, we have the power to stop the operation on our side. And we can even possibly go after the employer as well. Old Madame Dongfang smiled. I see. The 3 no kills of the Dongfang family is also a type of perseverance. Jun Moxie exclaimed. Grandma, you mustn't exclude me from the operation this time. I'm a real certified assassin of our Dongfang family. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 836. Chrysanthemum City. Chrysanthemum Chen. The old madam thought for a moment and mentally calculated the opponent's strength. Although they could plant experts around their targets, there couldn't be too many experts around each target. On their side, they had over 10 missions each time. If they distributed their forces, they could have at least 5 or 6 superior supreme experts accompanying them for each mission. This amount of strength was sufficient. After confirming again, she smiled and nodded. Since it's like that, you can just pick any team and go out and play. However, you must take care of your own safety. If you fall down or bump into anything, this old grandma will not allow you to go out again. Jun Moxie immediately agreed enthusiastically, an excited gleam shining in his eyes. Who would have thought that his campaign to reclaim the debt of blood would begin with him assuming the role of an assassin again? Wasn't this exactly the kind of life he'd always desired? The copious amount of blood that the 3 holy lands owed him were finally going to be reclaimed by his own hands. 3 days later, Jun Moxie and Dongfang Wenqing, along with 20 experts from the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troops, and 2 Dongfang family Sky Great Assassins stepped out of the Dongfang family doors and moved north. There were a total of 5 targets in their path this time. This time, they accepted a total of 15 missions. The old madam changed her strategy, directing splitting the forces into 3 paths. Each group was responsible for all the missions in their path. Dongfang Wenjian and Bailey Luo Yun was in one group, while Dongfang Wendao and Leng Ao was paired together. Whether it was by coincidence or design, Jun Moxie somehow got landed into the same team as his first uncle Dongfang Wenqing. This caused young Master Jun to feel incredibly depressed. But the old madam had made it very clear. If you're not willing, you can just not go. Just stay behind and accompany this old woman. Anyway, I'm still worried that you'll get hurt. But how would Jun Moxie dare to say he's not willing? He knew that the old madam would much rather he didn't go. No matter how formidable his strength had reached, he was still just a little grandson that needed her protection. This was something that would never change even if another 30, 50, or 100 years passed, even if the heavens itself withered away. So although Jun Moxie was somewhat unwilling, he could only scrunch his nose and follow his uncle. The hooves of horses stomped deeply into the mud, all the way towards the north. The first 2 targets along the way did not even require Jun Moxie or Dongfang Wenqing to do anything. Just 2 Heaven Destroyer team members and the 2 Sky Great Assassins from the Dongfang family were enough to settle the mission smoothly. The nephew and uncle duo had hidden themselves along the side observing, waiting for any hidden experts to show themselves. In the end, they only received an entire night's worth of chilly air. From the looks of it, Those two targets were not protected by the three Holy Lands experts. At this moment, the group was moving towards their third target. Less than 100 li in front will be our third target. This target is also one of the hardest one to deal with among the 15 missions we've accepted this time. Dongfang Wenqing rode atop his horse, his expression somewhat serious. Oh. I'm really interested to know. Just what kind of person is that? That even first uncle finds it tricky? Could it be one of those secluded experts? Jun Moxie's current appearance had changed greatly. His face was bruised and filled with black circles. And one eye was bigger than the other. Even his mouth was somewhat askew and swollen. At this moment, he raised his hand and stretched a finger into his nose. Then, with a so sound, he flicked outwards and a rabbit sprang out with blood flowing from its side. Behind him, everyone looked at the scene speechlessly. Normally, such a scene would mean a fantastic meal. However, this rabbit was killed by young Master Jun's booger. Although that booger would not necessarily make it inedible, but there was still a psychological barrier. This target is not just tricky, but extremely tricky to deal with. Although he's not a so-called hermit expert, he's much harder to handle than that. Dongfang Wenqing looked at his precious nephew with exasperation. I say, Moxie, can you be slightly more civilized? No matter what, you're a young master of an aristocratic family. After leaving your house, how can you behave in such an unglamorous manner? Even if you don't care about your face, does your Jun family not want their face? Even if your Jun family doesn't care about their image, what about the face of your mother, grandmother, and me, your uncle? With your current image, I'm too ashamed to even tell my friends that you're my nephew. Isn't that embarrassing? If you don't have anything important, don't talk to me as much as possible. Even if you're not afraid of throwing your face away, I still value mine. My current image isn't that the results of Uncle's work. Jun Moxie twisted his neck, causing popping sounds to ring out. You've beaten my handsome face to such a manner, and you have the face to tell me to behave in a cultured manner? Before scolding me, shouldn't you examine your methods? I'm not saying that your methods aren't good. It's just, somewhat, unrefined. Young Master Jun was boiling with pent-up anger at this moment, to the extent that even his nose was going crooked with rage. For the sake of revenge, this Dongfang First Master had specially fixed his face to such an ugly state. Even the normally cordial-tempered young Master Jun was angered. And now, he even blamed him for looking unrefined and scolded him for it. It would be a wonder to not get angry. But this fellow was still his own uncle. So even if he was angry, he could only endure, not daring to argue back or fight back. He even had to fake a look of obedience, allowing him to say whatever he wanted to. But Dongfang Wenqing felt even more aggrieved. All along the way, he'd exhausted all his ideas to think about how to fix this nephew of his. Berating, criticizing, he tried everything just to release the steam in his heart. But this nephew was like a dead pig that didn't fear boiling water. No matter what kind of wind or rain was thrown at him, he wouldn't be moved. Dongfang First Master had dried out his mouth trying to scold this nephew, but the latter was completely unaffected. Because young Master Jun already knew that he would be met with his uncle's relentless verbal tirade all the way, he directly sealed off his sense of hearing. Though Dongfang First Master's spittle flew all over the place and the tiles under their feet from his heated scoldings, Jun Moxie did not hear a single word. Not only did he not hear anything, he even derived an odd sense of pleasure at seeing Dongfang First Master's mouth opening and closing, with spittle lining his lips and mustache. At times, He even laughed aloud without control in the middle of a scolding. This was something that Dongfang Wenqing didn't know. So the more he scolded, the more exhausted he felt. After 2 whole days of scolding, he decided to simply stop. Against this nephew of his, Dongfang First Master felt completely helpless, so he decided to switch to another method of revenge. Don't you have a pretty boy image? Then I'll mess you up into an ugly brat. We'll see if you can still stand it. But who would have thought that Jun Xie would actually be completely fine with this new image as well? Not only that, his behavior even instantly changed to align with his new looks. Before his appearance was changed, this young Master Jun still acted in a suave and refined, princely manner. But after his face turned ugly, all his words and actions changed completely, into a complete beggar-like manner. This level of adaptation ability caused even the well-experienced Dongfang Wenqing to feel incredibly inferior. In fact, he even suspected that this was the true character of this brat. Nose picking, booger flicking, these were just the simple stuff. At night, he would go into Dongfang First Master's room and sit down. After taking off his shoes, he would begin picking at his toenails in an extremely natural way. Without pausing, he dipped his hand into Dongfang First Master's fruit bowl, but didn't eat anything. Finally, he wiped his hands against the beddings, dragged his shoes, and went back to his own room to sleep. Right after exiting the room, he would always cough in a disgusting manner and spit out a huge globule of phlegm. With one finger against the side of his nose, he blew his nose, causing a dark yellowish thing to fly out in an unbridled manner, slapping against the ground with a crisp sound. Because of that, Dongfang First Master nearly went crazy that night. He wanted to drink some water, but the water jug and the cup was touched by dirty hands that touched his foot. Would he still dare to drink? Eat the fruits? He did not dare to. Couldn't eat and couldn't drink, he could at least go to bed right. But the bedding had also been stained. Dongfang First Master was angered, speechless, and nearly went on a rampage. However, there was no helping it. He only had himself to blame and couldn't complain. In the end, he always shut his door tightly early every night. Even if someone threatened to beat him to death, he wouldn't let that fellow through the doors anymore. But oftentimes, he would wake up to find the disgusting foot of his nephew propped up against the side of his bed. The little fellow would be propping that extremely ugly face of his with one hand and picking his toes with the other hand. Mumbling, "Uncle, you're awake? Look at my feet. That's all dead skin. The human body's assimilation of the new and excretion of the old is truly fast. Especially a young man like me. Being young is such a great thing." With young Master Jun's miraculous abilities, was there a door that could stop him? Seeing such a shocking image before him, Dongfang First Master instantly felt a churning sensation in his stomach and an overwhelming urge to vomit. Who would be willing to see such an ugly bastard picking their equally gross feet in front of their eyes first thing in the morning? And the foot was even so close to him that he could feel the heat emanating off it. In just 3 days, Dongfang First Master, whose mental fortitude was still passable, completely admitted defeat and begged for pardon. With that, these kind of days finally ended. Right in front is our continent's famed Chrysanthemum City. Our target is also the head of Chrysanthemum City's #1 aristocratic family, the Chen family. Dongfang Wenqing forcefully restrained himself from looking at his nephew's upsetting image and simply looked forward with a lifeless expression. Chrysanthemum City? When Jun Moxie heard those 3 words, he instantly felt his own chrysanthemum clench. Widening his eyes with shock, he exclaimed, "That name sounds pretty great." The name sounds great? What's the use if it's just the name that sounds good? Chrysanthemum City rules over a region of several thousand li. Dongfang Wenqing scoffed coldly and continued. Chrysanthemums in the Chrysanthemum City blossom into an ocean of flowers, wherein lies the Chen family, everlasting chrysanthemums, forever undefeated. Sighing softly, he shook his head. Chrysanthemum Chen is not to be provoked. Jun Moxie suddenly hugged his stomach and roared maniacally with laughter, to the point where tears rolled from his eyes. What a good poem! What a great poem! I wonder which genius wrote such an excellent poem capable of lasting through the ages for the Chen family. Oh, I'm going to die from laughter. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 837. Trust? Or challenge? Is it really that funny? Dongfang Wenqing asked with a strange expression. No matter how he thought, he couldn't understand what this nephew was laughing about. Chrysanthemum Chen, what a great name. Could it be that this family's chrysanthemums are all very deep? I wonder where the chrysanthemum gate is located at. Is it very wide? Or tight? Ha ha ha. Jun Moxie bent over laughing, nearly falling off his horse. What are you laughing at? You brat! Dongfang First Master grew angry. Facing a powerful enemy like this, not only are you not thinking of an appropriate strategy, you even have the time to laugh. Powerful enemy? Jun Moxie finally stopped laughing with great difficulty. His shoulders were still trembling from the laughter, but he snorted ruthlessly. Just this ragtag bunch can be considered a powerful enemy? They called themselves undefeatable chrysanthemums, right? Uncle, just watch quietly today as I make that nonsense chrysanthemum Chen family sing me a song of defeated chrysanthemums. This chrysanthemum is not so easy to defeat. Their foundations are actually very deep. Dongfang Wenqing didn't know what this nephew of his was talking about and was even less able to comprehend his joke about the chrysanthemums. Right now, he could only concentrate on the mission as he compared the strength of both sides. Rubbing his chin, he continued. Our target this time is the head of the Chen family, Cloud Chaser Chen Qingtian. Wanting to kill Chen Qingtian under the guard of countless experts is an extremely difficult thing. Dongfang First Master took out a scroll from his sleeves and passed it to Jun Moxie. This is the detailed information on the Chen family. Assassinate the head of a super family? Uncle, how did the Dongfang family end up accepting such a ludicrous mission? Jun Moxie looked over the scroll carefully and asked with confusion. At the same time, a strong doubt rose in his heart. Disregarding the addition of Jun Moxie's forces, if one only looked at Dongfang family's original lineup, it would be extremely unreasonable for them to accept this mission. According to the report, although the Chen family was considered as a worldly family, they could actually be counted as a super family as well. Their foundations were actually not below the Dongfang family. In fact, there were even several areas that they were superior in. And this was just the information on the surface. Who knew how much more stuff was hidden in the dark? For the Dongfang family, which had been reclusive for so long, finally returning to the world, accepting this target from the start was an incredibly strange thing. The reason lies with you. Dongfang First Master looked at his nephew with some affection. Although the two of them had been *ted heads all the way these few days, he was actually very satisfied with this nephew. Me? What do you mean? Jun Moxie raised his head and asked with confusion. Around 1,000 years ago, the Chen family was just a newly established family. At that time, they were only a small family, and although they progressed well, they were only considered as a third-rate family. But around 500 years ago, A startling genius suddenly appeared from the Chen family. From then on, they've risen quickly, standing stably until now where they completely dominated an area. That legendary character that carried the Chen family to their prime was someone that you're probably familiar with. That person is Chen Chong. From the time that Chen Chong first rose to prominence, his name quickly resounded through the entire Xian continent in just a few months. After that, he charged smoothly all the way to the peak of Xian cultivation. Before the age of 50, he'd already reached the supreme realm. His fame could be said to be unrivaled at that time, a living legend. After that, he joined the three holy lands, becoming the Wind and Cloud's venerable Wind and Cloud Saint. Fantasy became legend. But now, this legend that had ensured the prosperity of the Chen family was rumored to have fallen by the hands of your master. Jun Moxie shook his head and sigged. So that was the case. He roughly understood the situation now. Chen Chong, who'd already entered the Saint realm, had died so unexpectedly. To the elusive world of immortals, it was definitely a huge loss. But to the Chen family, it meant that their only backing was gone. Their sky had fallen. Dongfang Wenqing had a faint smile on his face as he continued. After Chen Chong's death was verified, the Jun family had already retreated into Tianfa. The Chen family swore to get their revenge, but they couldn't find a target. Besides, an enemy that even Chen Chong couldn't defeat was definitely not something that a worldly family like them could provoke. But right at this time, our Dongfang family, who has a close relationship to you, suddenly proclaimed our return to the world. The Chen family naturally directed their hatred towards us, swearing not to rest until one of us is dead. Jun Moxie shook his head faintly, not knowing if he should laugh or cry. From the looks of it, no matter what it was, there would always be cause and effect in the world. As long as a person had the intent for vengeance, even if they couldn't find the proper target, they would still find another target to vent their hatred on. No matter how vague the relationship their target had with the original perpetrator, and no matter how ludicrous the reason they used to persecute them was. Even if it was completely ridiculous, there will always be someone who will use it as an excuse. In this world, the so-called excuse was actually this easy to obtain. Murdering and pillaging had become a righteous and noble thing because of such excuses. That was the exact thing with the Chen family this time. They didn't have the courage or the ability to look for the Jun family inside Tianfa. However, they still wanted to turn their rage to another family. Such actions were truly despicable and shameless to the extreme. After the Chen family declared their stand, we instantly received this request. Dongfang Wenqing said with a dangerous glint in his eyes. The one who issued this contract was another super family, the Zhan family. This matter is so coincidental that it's ridiculously funny. Zhan family? Why is the Zhan family issuing the contract a funny thing? Jun Moxie furrowed his brows. This Zhan word had roused an unpleasant thought in his mind. The beautiful green hunter's pained face, and Zhan Mubai's palm once again appeared before his eyes. A chilly killing intent surged from him unknowingly. Exactly. An assassination request from the Zhan family is nothing but an exceedingly funny joke. Many years ago, the old ancestor of the Zhan family had already entered the elusive world of immortals. Although it's been many years, there's still evidence on this. Also, the Zhan family and the Chen family have always had a good relationship. Even by relationship of organization, the two families are both connected by the elusive world of immortals and never had any sort of conflict. Two families who always had good relationship, and one suddenly issues a mission to kill off the other family's family head? Isn't that ludicrous? Dongfang Wenqing laughed coldly and continued. Besides that, there was a rumor several hundred years ago that the Chen family's legendary genius Chen had accepted an expert of the Zhan family in the Three Holy Lands as his master. All these years, the two families were practically speaking out of the same mouth. Now, the Zhan family actually issued a mission to assassinate the family head of the Chen family. This is obviously a trap. Perhaps they thought our Dongfang family were a family of idiots, so without any further considerations, your grandmother immediately accepted this mission. This might not be the two families treating our Dongfang family as idiots. Instead, this matter is exactly the two families issuing a challenge to the Dongfang family. Jun Moxie finally understood. The Dongfang family has finally proclaimed their re-entry to the world. And after receiving such a naked provocation right after, they couldn't possibly shrink back right after. That's a move that would ruin their reputation. So this was not an assassination contract, but a letter of challenge. When old Madame Dongfang accepted the mission personally, it was the same as accepting the two families' declaration of war. Old Madame Dongfang's attitude was truly decisive. Facing the challenge of two large families, she actually did not hesitate to fight. Firstly, this war declaration relates to the prestige of the Dongfang family's name as the #1 assassin family in the world. No matter what, this name could not be sullied. Secondly, the old madam was using this move to declare her support for her grandson Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie instantly understood the whole situation. He even understood that regardless of whether he came or not, old Madame Dongfang would definitely still make the same move. With the current strength of the Dongfang family, facing these two super families at once was undoubtedly a suicidal path. But old Madame Dongfang had still made the decision without any hesitation. His appearance had given the Dongfang family the power to triumph over their enemies. It was undoubtedly a timely assistance, like sending charcoal in the midst of snowy weather, or adding flowers to embroidery. A warm feeling suddenly arose in Jun Moxie's heart. This was kinship. Only his own kin would make such a seemingly foolish decisions for him. Dongfang family and Zhan family, in terms of nationality, belong to the Yutang kingdom. But these two families never participated in the country's struggles, and their descendants were not allowed to enter government careers. Both families also happened to be powerful forces, and their elite disciples were plentiful. Whether in wealth or military, they were legitimate behemoths. At this time, both sides had probably already made their preparations. Thus, our mission this time can be said to be exceedingly dangerous with the future inestimable. Dongfang Wenqing said seriously. Moxie, you must be ready. We can despise our opponents, but we definitely cannot underestimate or disregard them. Jun Moxie nodded heavily, and his eyes turned as ruthless as a hungry vulture. Ever since he understood the true underlying causes behind this mission, Jun Moxie could distinctly feel that this mission might not be as easy as he had thought. The Zhan family and Chen family's combined strength was definitely far above the Dongfang family, but if they wanted to wipe them out, it was not possible. Since the Three Holy Lands were going to retaliate, as long as they got the opportunity, they would definitely strike with the force of thunder. When a bird's nest was overturned, no egg would remain intact. How could they let the fish escape from the net? But since the two families did not possess the strength to do that, then the only explanation here was that this place had become a trap laid out by the Three Holy Lands in the name of the two aristocratic families. It was a pity that this battlefield now had Jun Moxie as well. The Three Holy Lands' well-designed trap was doomed to not succeed. Jun Moxie scoffed coldly in his heart. It remained to be seen just who this trap would end up burying. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 838. Chen Family's Scheme. Jun Moxie decided in his heart that if this place was an invisible battlefield set up by the three holy lands, then he would make good use of it. That copious amount of blood debt that was owed to him was due for a little interest. And this interest must definitely be paid with fresh blood. The hooves of the horses fell like the rain, and Jun Moxie's group of 24 rode into Chrysanthemum City. Chrysanthemum City, Chen family. In the Great Hall, the Chen family's head, Cloud Chaser Chen Qingtian sat cross-legged with a sullen face. Beside him, there were two white-robed old men. Both of their eyes were closed as they sat without uttering a single word, like a pair of statues. Below them was two neat rows with a total of 45 chairs. All of these chairs were filled with people, and all of them were sitting silently, without a word as well. Every single face was heavy as though they were bracing themselves to face a serious storm. There were even a sense of battle intent in the air. The clopping sound of a horse's hooves rang out as a horse galloped over from afar, stopping in the spacious yard. After that, a flurry of hurried footsteps rang out. The two white-robed old men both opened their eyes at the same time, causing piercing lights to shine from them. "They're here." Everyone in the Great Hall sat up as these two words appeared in their hearts. Reporting to family head, the Dongfang family's forces has entered Chrysanthemum City. A green-robed man walked into the Great Hall, knelt down and immediately announced in a loud voice. Chen Qingtian narrowed his eyes and asked in a deep voice, "Oh? Who are those people? How many people are there?" The green-robed man hurriedly replied, "The person leading them is the eldest master of the Dongfang family, Dongfang Wenqing. There are 23 others following him. Among them, there are two sky-grade assassins of the Dongfang family. Apart from that, there's a youth with them who's said to be someone from the Dongfang family's junior generation. Judging from the clothes on the other 20 men, and their behaviors, there's a possibility that they are servants accompanying the previously mentioned youth. Kakik, the Dongfang family are underestimating me a little bit too much. Just one Dongfang Wenqing and two sky-grade assassins, and they want to take my Chen Qingtian's head? Could they have been away for too long that they no longer understand the heights of the heavens and the depths of the earth? To think that they actually brought a junior along with them. Did they think that Chrysanthemum City is a place where they could come and go as they please?" Chen Qingtian said with a cold smile. "Ha ha ha, just two sky-grade assassins, and a Dongfang Wenqing, they want to assassinate our family head with just this level of force? Too funny. Haha." Below them, a middle-aged man laughed unbridledly and clasped his fists. "Family head. The Dongfang family is so arrogant. This protector suggests that we teach them a harsh lesson. After thoroughly humiliating them, we will execute them and send Dongfang Wenqing's body back to the Dongfang family. At that time, we will officially declare war upon them and wipe out the Dongfang family." Yes, Protector Li is right. Big brother, the Dongfang family clearly does not put us in their eyes. We definitely cannot swallow this insult so easily. The one who spoke was a person sitting on the third seat on the first row. He's Chen Qingtian's third brother, Chen Qingyun. At this time, his face was filled with cruel bloodlust. "Everyone, we must not be too hasty. Dongfang family never fights face to face. They rely on their terrifying assassinations hit their enemies instead. Dongfang family's sky-grade assassins are existences who can even assassinate Sky Xian-level experts and retreat completely unscathed. One of the two white-robed old men beside Chen Qingtian spoke. Dongfang Wenqing's original cultivation was only at Spirit Xian 3rd level. But for some reason, his strength had leapt upwards all of a sudden. Right now, he's at least at the superior supreme level. If He lifted his head slowly and his piercing eyes swept across the crowd as he continued in a low voice, if we underestimate him, we will suffer greatly. Chen Qingtian's expression turned serious as he nodded. Elder Feng's reminder is right. With Chen Qingtian's position as the head of the family, even he needed to be so respectful towards the two old men. Yet, nobody found it strange at all. All of them treated as a matter of course. Quite apparently, they were already very clear about the backgrounds of these two old men. Just now you mentioned that there was another youngster who's quite possibly a junior of the Dongfang family. What did that youngster look like? The other white-robed old man suddenly asked. From the start, he never spoke much. The moment he opened his mouth, however, he asked about a seemingly unrelated issue. The green-robed man paused for a moment and reported that youth was exceedingly ugly. His face was black, and his mouth was somewhat crooked. One of his eyes were bigger than the other, and his actions were couth and uncultured. Just judging by his appearance, he resembles a local ruffian more than a young master of an aristocratic family. This person was laden with heavy responsibility, and had been sent to monitor the movements of the Dongfang family. He was naturally extremely meticulous in his observations. At this moment, he was able to describe each person that the Dongfang family had sent with great accuracy without leaving out a single detail. His description of Jun Moxie's current appearance was even exceedingly accurate to an intense level. The Dongfang family is a house of assassins that had lasted for close to 1,000 years. How can they have this manner of disciple? The white-robed old man's face sank slightly as he shook his head. The first generation will follow in the manner of food, and the second generation in the manner of clothing. The third generations would all have a pride that comes from deep within the bones itself, which is what we call a noble aura. From close to a millennia, the Dongfang family should have had at least tens of generations of disciples. The chances of them producing a junior of such disposition should be so low that it's almost impossible. He snorted heavily. Besides, Dongfang families Dongfang Wenqing and Dongfang Wenjian both have no sons, while only Dongfang Wendao has 2 sons. According to the records, of the 2 sons, one had just come of age, while the other is still a child. Although their appearances cannot be called handsome, it's at least still average. This black-faced, unrefined youngster, where did he come from? Chen Qingtian's face stiffened and he said uncertainly, perhaps it's someone who'd hidden his true identity? There should be no mistake. The white-robed old man said with certainty. And this person must be an extraordinary expert. In this Dongfang family operation, that person must be an important figure. As for Dongfang Wenqing, him coming in so brazenly might instead be less of a threat. Most likely, he's just trying to attract and divert our attention. The crucial point should be that youth. Chen Qingtian nodded deeply and expressed his agreement. Turning around, he ordered, investigate that youth's background immediately. Take note of their every movement. The moment there's any news, report it to me. Yes. Old Third. Go and maintain contact with the people from the Zhan family. Tell them to make their preparations and get ready to act at any time. Okay. Big brother. The experts from the Zhan family side have already finished their preparations long ago. Apart from that, their reinforcements are already outside the city. The moment anything happens, they would be able to coordinate with us in all areas swiftly. At this time, the green-robed man revealed a hesitant expression as he stood up. Seeing that, the white-robed old man stopped him and asked, "Do you have anything else to report?" "Yes, it's just, this matter is somewhat strange. This subordinate dares not be certain." The green-robed man paused and a conflicted expression appeared on his face as he replied hesitantly, "Also." "Also what?" Another person urged from the side. This subordinate mentioned the 20 people dressed up as guards just now. The auras of every single one of them were incredibly heavy and full of killing intent. Furthermore, this subordinate was unable to see through their cultivations at all. But through this subordinate's observation, I discovered an exceedingly strange matter. What strange matter? Chen Qingtian furrowed his brows. The two sky-grade assassins from the Dongfang family seemed quite fearful towards those 20 guards. Their actions were slightly restrained in front of them, and they even seemed somewhat respectful, as if they were trying to obtain a favorable impression from them. Of course, this is only this subordinate's personal observation and analysis. There are no evidence to support it at all. The green-robed man recounted slowly and said. The moment these words came out, the two white-robed old men instantly grew serious as they exchanged a glance, as if they'd thought of the same thing together. The same white-robed old man asked in a heavy tone, "Do these people have a feral and untamed aura around them? Are their bodies firm and powerfully built? Very, ferocious and tough?" When the question rang out, Chen Qingtian also began to grow wary. The crowd also stiffened up and sat up straight. Everyone's attention was focused on the green-robed man. In that instant, everyone thought of the same thing, Tian Fa's transformed Xian beasts. Yes, they're all tall and muscular, and their bodies reeked of a fierce bloody aura. However, there was nothing feral or wild about them. In fact, they were extremely disciplined. All 20 of them moved practically together, each foot and every step synchronized to near perfection. From this performance, they seemed more like seasoned soldiers. This subordinate can confirm that they're definitely not Xian beasts from Tian Fa forest. The green-robed man considered for a moment and finally spoke out, "Although this little one hasn't seen any high-grade transformed Xian beasts before, all the Xian beasts in the manor had been handled by this little one since I was a child. To this point, I'm absolutely certain." "That's odd." The two white-robed old men looked at each other with confusion on their faces. They initially thought that Tian Fa had sent their Xian beasts as reinforcements. But after hearing the scout's words, it seemed to be an unlikely possibility. Could it be that their judgments were wrong? Besides that, the 20 men were exceptionally respectful to Dongfang Wenqing and the black-faced youth. That was why the subordinate said that the 20 men were most likely servants of that junior disciple. After saying everything, the scout stood still in silence. This matter is exceedingly serious. We must investigate thoroughly. The two white-robed old men said to Chen Qingtian at the same time. Yes. Chen Qingtian sucked in a deep breath of air, clearly unable to set his mind at ease. Chen Qingyun stood up and nodded, regarding the matters with the Zhan family. Big brother can rest assured. However, with regards to the investigations on the black-faced kid's background, who would be more suitable to take the job? Chen Qingyun was not a fool. When Chen Qingtian instructed them to investigate, it was only targeted at the rest. But with the additional report, and from the attitudes of the two white-robed old men, this matter had obviously been elevated to another level. It cannot be underestimated, and any misjudgment could end up with serious consequences, or even the entire situation turning on their heads. Chen Qingtian fell silent for a moment and nodded slightly. "We'll let Chen go then." Only he can deal with this matter properly without leaving any traces. My heart is most at ease with him on the job. Big brother, we're already using Chinner at the first phase? Aren't we thinking too highly about that brat? Chen Qingyun said with surprise. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 839. For Great Young Masters. Grand Music Banquet. Caution steers a ship for 10,000 years. This matter is extremely important, and it will determine whether or not our Chen family can take another step forward. We cannot afford to be careless. Furthermore, according to the report, the strength of the forces the Dongfang family sent this time was extremely difficult to see through. If we send anyone else, and they end up startling the grass and scaring the snake away, the consequences will not be good. Chen Qingtian's face was sullen, but his eyes shone with a bright gleam. Although Chen Qingyun was still somewhat unable to understand, he did not say much more and left to pass down the order. Chen Qingtian looked at his third brother walking out of the hall with an expressionless face. However, his heart was actually turbulent like an ocean. Third brother, third brother. The importance of this matter. How could it simply concern just a mere worldly Dongfang family? What we're doing is actually the grand vengeance mission of the elusive world of immortals and Lord Mo Wu Dao. Old ancestor Chen Chong passed away, and our Chen family no longer has anything to rely on in the three holy lands. From the looks of it, in just a few more generations, we will be thoroughly stepped over by the other families. This task that the elusive world of immortals gave us this time is equivalent to a huge opportunity. If we don't perform well, the Chen family's days may not last long. Chen Qingtian was both excited and worried when he thought to hear. This was the first time in many generations that the three holy lands had given them an important task. If they could handle this matter well, they would naturally obtain Palace Lord Mo Wu Dao's favor. As long as the latter was happy and was willing to bestow them with a few cultivation techniques, martial skills, or other good things, it would be enough to allow the Chen family to rise even further. That way, although they lost Chen Chong, their old ancestor, as long as they gained the Palace Lord of the elusive world of immortals as their new backing, they would instead not decline, but rather rise to greater heights. But if they failed, not only would the Chen family have to face the counterattack of the Dongfang family, even the other families under the three holy lands would take the chance to kick them while they were down. At that time, the family's declination would simply be an expected result. Even though their allied family, the Zhan family, might not do anything at the moment, if it came to the worst-case scenario, it would not be an impossible matter for the entire Chen family to be wiped out. Just thinking about that horrible result, Chen Qingtian felt his entire body shiver uncontrollably. So it was not wrong to say that this matter of dealing with the Dongfang family was undoubtedly a huge opportunity. At the same time, it was also a knife hanging above their heads. Chen Qingtian was determined to not make any mistakes. No matter the price, they could only succeed and were not allowed to fail. As such, even for this minor task of information gathering, he still sent out his most valued eldest son Chen. The Xian continent was a place where talent was abound like the clouds in the sky. But there were only 4 most well-known geniuses. All of them were young masters of aristocratic families and were jointly termed the 4 great young masters. Although the Xian cultivations of the 4 great young masters were considered extraordinary, they were not all that high level. But if one judged them by their minds, their schemes, and quick-wittedness, it would truly be hard to determine a superior one among them. The modest gentleman, gentle as jade. Young Master White Jade, Yu Chao Fan. The graceful gentleman, carefree as the wind. The carefree young master, Li Yu Ran. Verdant bamboo, gaze piercing to the end of the skies. Sky's edge young master, Duan Tianya. No intimate friends who understand him. Grief-stricken, heartbreak young master, Chen. This Chen was exactly the heartbreak young master among the four great young masters. Chen was a rare genius that appeared after several hundred years in the Chen family. Only he was different from the other three great young masters. He was considered the odd one out among the four great young masters. Because this Chen was actually extremely well versed in both martial arts and literature, and was very accomplished in both areas as well. His results in Xian cultivation could be seen easily. At such a young age, he had already entered the middle stages of Sky Xian. With just one more step, he would be at the peak of Sky Xian. And this year, he was only 26 years old. Just looking at his cultivation talent, he was even comparable to a genius like Bailey Luoyun. One could even say that if Bailey Luoyun had not met Jun Moxie, the two would not even be on the same level given a bit more time. Chen was also considered the first cultivation prodigy in over 500 years that could follow in their ancestor, Chen Chang's footsteps. Chen was not only talented in cultivation, his literary talent was extraordinary. His mind was deep and scheming, and he was also well versed in music, especially in the three formidables. These three formidables were the zither, flute, and the xiao. When he played on those instruments, it would cause the audience to sink into the music, even forgetting to extricate themselves. He would often sigh longly, lamenting that, although the world is vast, there isn't a single person who can match my talent for me to confide in. For this reason, he was also nicknamed Hate Confidant. And the moment this person attacked, his methods were exceedingly ruthless, without a shred of mercy. Someone once made a poem about him, Heartbreak Young Master Hate No Confidant, with the last rhythm of the song, striking out and breaking hearts of men. Everyone including the Zhan family agreed that if Chen continued to grow at his current speed, he would become the Chen family's second saint-level expert after Chen Chong. In fact, he could even turn into a saint king in the future. This was also a big reason why the Zhan family had intentionally improved their relationship with the Chen family. The other point was that Chen and the pearl of the Zhan family, their youngest daughter, the youngest cultivation prodigy of the Zhan family and also the publicly acknowledged #1 beauty in the Yutang kingdom, Zhan Mengdai, were engaged to be married. If their plan to deal with the Dongfang family was accomplished smoothly, Chen would formally marry Zhan Mengdai, binding the two families together. Chen Qingtian had sent his trump card Chen out right from the start. One could say that the importance he attached to the forces that Dongfang Wenqing had sent over this time had reached an extreme level. Besides that, let's invite the four lordships of the family to follow alongside the first young master. The priority is to ensure his personal safety. Chen Qingtian continued, making his decision. Chen was the future and hope of the Chen family. Nothing was allowed to happen to him. Since young master Chen is personally acting, us two old men will also follow along in the darkness. The two of us are also very interested in seeing what kind of talent that black-faced youngster from the Dongfang family is like. We'll also take the chance to experience the ferocious and heavy killing intent of those 20 guards ourselves. Kiki. The white-robed old man on the left stroked his long beard and said with a slight smile. When he mentioned the words, ferocious and heavy killing intent, his tone became heavy and a disdainful laugh could be heard. Many thanks to Elderly for his concern. Chen Qingtian cupped his hands with joy. With these two people following, Chen's safety was more or less guaranteed. Inside Chrysanthemum City. Golden Chrysanthemum Inn. Jun Moxie and the rest had stopped here temporarily to rest. Dongfang Wenqing took out some gold and directly booked the entire inn. Dongfang First Master's high-profile actions had left Jun Moxie somewhat baffled. Assassins were people who specialized in sneak attacks, and as their names implied, it was always better to be as low profile as possible. But Dongfang Wenqing's actions were completely opposite to that. When Jun Moxie asked him about it, Dongfang Wenqing smiled bitterly and shook his head. Chrysanthemum City is the territory of the Chen family. Their influence had already spread into every single business in this city long ago. I believe that when we were still several hundred li away, they were already keeping tabs on all of our movements, to the point where they were clear about every detail. If we still tried to sneak around and behave discreetly, that would only be a joke in their eyes. If that's the case, we might as well move around in a clear and above-board manner. We'll take things one step at a time from here. Jun Moxie turned speechless. Since it's like that, I'm going out to take a stroll. I'd like to see what kind of fun stuff they have in this Chrysanthemum City. Dongfang Wenqing looked at him steadily before nodding after a long time. Looks like you have your own calculations. In that case, it's also good for you to go out and take a look. However, you need to be careful in all things. Do not overly display your abilities and attract unnecessary attention. He had no choice but to be cautious. The most important element in this mission was Jun Moxie. This was also the main reason the old Madame Dongfang had arranged for Jun Moxie to follow him. All along the way, they did not conceal their movements. Thus, Jun Moxie's identity would be the enemy's greatest question. The Chen family had most likely found out about them, and that utterly clueless bunch would most likely try all kinds of methods to find out everything about Jun Moxie. So Jun Moxie going out by himself this time was going to confuse them further, hopefully revealing a way to counter their schemes. And Dongfang Wenqing also believed that Jun Moxie definitely had his own plans. As such, he was quite relaxed. Jun Moxie smiled lightly and went out directly, without bringing anyone with him. Aren't you guys following him? If something happens, what would you do? Although Dongfang Wenqing was very confident in Jun Moxie, just seeing him walk out like that by himself still gave him quite a shock. Dongfang First Master, please be rest assured. With the abilities of our young master, unless he bumps into tens of Saint King or Saint Emperor level experts, he will definitely be fine. The target this time is only a mere Chen family, and they are no more than prancing clowns in our sights. Most likely, young master has his own plans in his heart. Otherwise, if it's just to trample this little Chen family, young master need not even waste his energy. Just the few of us is already enough to settle them. One of the Heaven Destroyer team soldier said with a light smile. Gulp. Dongfang First Master nearly choked on his own breath and passed out on the spot upon hearing those words. Truly, the servant's arrogance always matched the master's pride. Who do you think your young master is? To say that unless he bumps into tens of Saint King or Saint Emperor level experts, he will definitely be fine? Those are all legendary characters. Isn't your bragging truly too ridiculous? Do you think that your young master is a god? Dongfang First Master was completely unable to reply to such a statement. Snorting huffily, he stomped back into his room with a black face. As he made his way up the stairs, loud booming sounds rang out as he stamped his feet. When Jun Moxie walked out, he purposefully stopped for a moment at the entrance of the inn. Then, He arrogantly fluffed his cloak and walked out in the direction of the rising sun. His legs opened wide like a crab's. A proper east-west road was treaded as if it were a north-south road. His arms swung self-importantly with every step, as if he owned the entire street. Perhaps even the most arrogant hooligan did not behave like that. From his perception, at least a dozen figures around the road suddenly dashed off, seemingly to deliver a report. Being too handsome is really too troublesome. Young Master Jun squinted his abnormally sized eyes and cracked a light smile, causing his crooked lips to go even more askew. Those people must have gone to inform the missus of their family to tell them to come and witness this young master's radiance. With a pooey sound, he turned his head and spat out a large globule of saliva before continuing on his path, swinging and strutting around like a particularly ugly crab. After some time, he heard someone shouting from a distance away, "Hurry up! Young Master Chen is going to perform today at the Tanguan Hall and organize a grand music banquet. If we're late, there won't be any more seats. This is a rare musical feast that one would not get to see even in several years." In an instant, countless people cheered and ran off. All of a sudden, the street was filled with people, all running towards a certain direction. Grand music banquet? There's a grand music banquet right after I come here? And it's organized by the Chen family's first young master? Jun Moxie snorted twice with his nose as he grabbed a person running past him. "Where's the Tanguan Hall?" That person struggled for a moment but did not manage to free himself. It was as if a steel clamp had wrapped itself around his arm, and his muscles throbbed with pain. Left with no choice, he asked with annoyance, "You don't even know the Tanguan Hall?" Huffed. "If I knew, why would I need to ask you?" Young Master Jun spat with annoyance. "Why are your words no different than fart?" Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 840. Tanguan Hall. Seeing Jun Moxie's fiendish-looking appearance, that person only felt extremely disgusted and unlucky. To think that he would bump into such an ugly thing the instant he stepped outside. And from the looks of it, this person was an evil young master as well. Scrunching his face, he hurriedly replied, "It's right in front. You'll find it by following the crowd." Jun Moxie made an "oh" sound and released him. He quickly dove into the crowd and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Jun Moxie smiled faintly with his crooked mouth and swaggered his way forward with the crowd. That person wasn't lying. This Tanguan Hall is really easy to find." Knowing that this young master is walking in this direction, he decided to host a whatever grand music banquet. If I don't go, wouldn't I be letting down his kind intentions? So Jun Moxie arrogantly made his way to the Tanguan Hall with a mindset of finding pleasure in helping others. On the other side, from the west side of the city, there were also some people rushing towards Tanguan Hall. A group of people had just stepped into the western gate and entered the city when they heard the words "Grand Music Banquet" and "Young Master Chen." One of them, a lady with her face hidden behind a black veil, snorted coldly as she rode atop her horse. "Looks like this young Master Chen is pretty famous. He hasn't even played anything, and so many people are running over to listen." An old man next to her asked tentatively, "Then, my lady, do we go over to take a look?" "That's good too. To think that I'd receive such a large surprise right after I stepped into Chrysanthemum City. I, Zhan Meng Dai, shall also take the chance to take a look at this fiancé of mine. The Xian continent's heartbroken young master. Just how will he break the hearts of men?" The girl laughed softly and said. Her slender legs kicked lightly against the horse's belly, and it trotted forward, making a path through the crowd. The old man revealed a loving expression as he followed after her. As he watched this young lady grow up, he'd invested a lot of his own feelings in the process. Right now, he treated her as if she were his own granddaughter. When she got engaged this year, it was actually to the Chen family's young master whom they'd never seen before. That was why he decided to take a look for himself, how this Chen young master looked like, and whether the young miss liked him. Most importantly, how was his character like? If he was like jade on the outside but rotten materials inside, they could make prior arrangements earlier. With a command, tens of people increased their speed and followed closely behind the young miss towards Tanguan Hall. People swarmed towards Tanguan Hall from all directions, and as Jun Moxie traveled along, he realized that the closer he got to Tanguan Hall, the quieter it got. When he arrived closer, he saw that the crowd was densely packed, and everyone was looking forward intently, but no one was making any noise at all. The structure at the center of the crowd was a 7-storied building. A large sign hung at the front, bearing the words Tanguan Hall in gold, bold strokes. On the left and right was a pair of couplets, celebrating all abundance and elegance under the heavens. The whole world joins together in a symphony. Just as Jun Moxie reached the front gate, a twang sound rang out from the roof, like an unvoiced resonant. A clear chord rang out, its sound light and refreshing, like the clear springs of the deep mountains, purifying the inner heart and soul, arriving unhurriedly. In an instant, the several thousand people were completely silent. Jun Moxie smiled mutely and swaggered forward, using his chi to forcefully carve a path through the crowd. Everyone could only look at his back view with rage, but after sensing the strength of his aura, none of them dared to say anything as they watched him walk swingingly forward like a drunken man, directly entering Tanguan Hall. Just as Jun Moxie stepped into Tanguan Hall, a series of acoustic musical sounds rang out from the top. From the looks of it, that heartbroken young master had started to play. The music was clear, elegant, and natural, without the least bit of fluff. It even carried a discreet sense of joy within, as if it was conveying a joy of welcoming a guest from far away. It was the song, "A Confidant is Near." To the musicians of the Xian continent, this was a song that all of them knew and was even more popular among scholars. This was a song that pursued an artistic mood and conception, easy to learn but difficult to master. Those who had the artistic skills to play it on the spot were rare, and anyone who could play it at the highest level were exceedingly hard to come by. Jun Moxie smiled lightly as he listened to the music. The sound of the zither rang out the moment he stepped into Tanguan Hall. There were no errors in the timing at all. It was as if it was coordinated specially for himself. Looks like this heartbroken young master was displaying some goodwill towards him. At this time, young Master Jun's powerful spiritual sense had detected that over a dozen spiritual senses had locked onto himself. The cultivation levels of these people were very wide, with the weakest only being at the Sky Xian level, and the slightly stronger ones were at the first or second level of Spirit Xian. There were a few much more powerful auras, presumably of the superior supreme level. There were also 2 hidden auras, somewhat intangible and fluctuating. Jun Moxie's eyebrows rose slightly with shock. That was at least a venerable level cultivation. And they were at the very least second-level venerables. It was truly hard to imagine that this so-called super family would actually have so many top-tier experts. This was surely a bit too ridiculous. Just based on this lineup, their strength was almost equivalent to Blizzard's Silver City at its peak. A mere worldly family, no matter what, shouldn't be this powerful. In that case, The only explanation was that most of these experts were people sent here by the Three Holy Lands. Looks like the Three Holy Lands were truly determined to deal with the Dongfang family this time. But Jun Moxie somehow found it quite amusing. The Three Holy Lands always sent small forces to deal with him, slowly increasing it. They never seemed to have truly taken him seriously, resulting in them being defeated time and again. Now, they finally seemed to have acknowledged his strength and decided to strike with full force. Just when they were about to crush him with all their power, the news came from Zhan Mubai's own mouth that Jun Moxie was confirmed to be dead. Mo Wu Dao had nowhere to vent the frustration in his chest, so he decided to vent it on Jun Moxie's relatives' family. Truthfully, this lineup should already be more than enough against the Dongfang family. In fact, the number of experts was sufficient to even destroy 2 Dongfang families. But as coincidence would have it, Jun Moxie was here again. With the Chen family's strength on top of the assistance from the Three Holy Lands, wanting to deal with the Dongfang family, this was quite sufficient and even a luxurious lineup. But if this lineup against himself, it was simply using an egg to smash a rock. Previously, when the two sides met in battle, the first time was the encirclement attack against Mei Shuiyan, waylaying them on the path to the Dongfang family. That was only the beginning. Following that was the battle at Blizzard's Silver City, the first true battle between the two sides. In the end, all of Mo Wu Dao's forces had been buried beneath the crumbled mountain. The second time was the battle at Tianxiang City. Jun Moxie faced off against 6 saints alone. Such a lineup could not be said to be weak, but they were ultimately defeated thoroughly as well. And today, the battle at this Chrysanthemum city that he'd set up would become the third battlefield between them. In any case, after this battle, there was no longer any possibility of him being able to conceal himself further. In that case, he might as well take the chance and blow the matter up further, beating his opponents till they hurt, till they're scared, or even till they're dead. That was always the best method to deal with the enemy. The Three Holy Lands were planning to use the strength of the worldly Zhan family and the Chen family to deal with the Dongfang family, which also belonged to the worldly family category. But he could similarly use the Zhan family and Chen family as bait, causing the Three Holy Lands to send a few more people down so he would have an easier time wiping all of them out together. Jun Moxie did not make any strange actions as he stepped casually into Tanguan Hall. His sharp senses told him that there were numerous strong auras focused on him. But he behaved completely nonchalantly as he pushed the crowd aside and climbed up the stairs. Just like that, he arrived very smoothly at the top level. The zither sounds became clearer, and as Jun Moxie looked over, he saw a graceful-looking white-robed youth sitting near the railings with an ancient zither in front of him. The zither was a 7-string guqin, and his 10 fingers danced agilely among the strings, plucking with precise control, producing deeply moving sounds. This youth's face was like crowned jade, with delicate features and bright eyes and graceful eyebrows. His body looked slender and tall, and his eyes hid a kind of loneliness and dispiritedness. His robes fluttered lightly in the wind, and he appeared like an immortal riding atop the clouds, having an indescribable grace and handsomeness. 2 young ladies dressed in green stood silently behind him. Beside him, there was a pot of incense, emitting faint smoke. Despite being surrounded by thousands of people, this building had an otherworldly and serene feeling. Just as Jun Moxie walked up, the youth pinched with his 5 fingers, causing a sharp twang to ring from the guqin, stopping the music abruptly. Raising his head, he looked at him with his dark eyes and smiled lightly. Just a simple action like that was filled with elegance and natural grace. Jun Moxie's sharp senses also discovered that in this heartbroken young master's face, although he was smiling, there was an indifference that had etched itself into his bones, ruthlessness, and a sorrow that was filled with inexplicable contempt. In the deepest reaches of his eyes, there was a kind of faint helplessness. With the first instant that he saw him, another name popped into Jun Moxie's head, Liu Ran. Liu Ran and this youth before him, the two of them. Regardless of whether in charm or the natural grace with which they carried themselves, all of it was extremely similar. It was the aloofness accumulated by their powerful family over the years, a kind of aristocrat aura that radiated out from the bone. But Jun Moxie only had a single word in his heart: tired. The style was there. The temperament was there. And everything seemed to be there, except himself. Living like that every single day. Isn't that tiring? Are you living as yourself? Or living out a kind of graceful appearance? Of a gentleman? So Jun Moxie only felt an exhausted feeling. Sincerely so. Shaking his head, he walked casually in and found a random chair to sit down. Crossing his left foot over the right, he tilted his head to the side and called out. An esteemed guest had come from far away. Why isn't there even a single cup of tea? What kind of hospitality is this? The youth's graceful face revealed a light smile as he smiled warmly. His smile was akin to the prettiest lady, and it carried a hint of bashfulness as he said apologetically, "An esteemed guest from afar is a great joy to have. There are naturally tea. Not only tea, there's even a gift of appreciation." As he said that, he clapped his hands lightly and called out, "Serve the tea. Serve the best tea." This story will be continued to chapter 841. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.